are these people?
Do either of you have been following the Cop City stuff in Atlanta? It's been
A little bit.
thrown
Well,
around.
we reported it a few weeks ago. So other than and I think just kind of watching you prep a little bit,
Yeah.
but not so much of an update now regarding, but I think you're
So
using an article that I sent you, right?
yeah, a bit
Or
of
at
it.
least
Yeah.
okay.
So our next story this evening, no Cop City. We covered the murder of Tortuguita, I think is how you pronounce that. Tallahassee boy, represent. But they essentially he was shot because a cop was shot by another cop, and they shot him because they're not paying attention too good. But anyway, so this is from Sheer Post, technically by Unicorn Riot. So Atlanta, Georgia, Atlanta area forest defenders, community activists, and their allies from around the country and the world are initiating a week of action against a proposed Cop City urban warfare campus and a movie industry facility that would demolish much of the largest urban forest in the country. By the way, we've covered their funding, right? It's almost all the same funding, Norfolk Southern funding, like BlackRock, Home Depot, like you name it. So the upcoming week of protests and direct action comes less than 2 months after Georgia State Patrol shot and killed Manuel Tortuguita Terran in suspicious circumstances at a defense encampment near the proposed site on January 18th. The weekend action of kicking off with a rally at Gresham Park with a music festival scheduled for the rest of the weekend. The coming days will feature more rallies, direct action, and press conferences. Sounds great, right? It's a music thing.
Sure.
Next time Jesse Jett will be there. Hopefully, if we can make that happen. Old Florida boy, he'll show up. So Unicorn Riot does some great coverage. Love their work. They just turn on a camera. It's fantastic. How hard is that? More of that, please. But anyway, I'll let them showcase it a bit.
I came here to stop Cop City. What did you all come here to do?
Stop Cop City!
What did we come to do?
Stop Cop City!
What did we come to do?
Stop Cop City!
Look, they got doggos, people walking.
After the APD killed Rayshard Brooks at that Wendy's, and our comrades burned that Wendy's to the ground.
Don't say that too loud, bro. They're listening.
We asked the city of Atlanta for a Rayshard Brooks Peace Center and the defunding of the police. And what was their response? The best we can give you is Cop City. When we asked the city of Atlanta to at least listen to communities and understand that 70% of those who were allowed to give public comment said that Cop City was only going to further hinder our communities. The city of Atlanta said, the best we can give you is to silence your voice. When we asked the city of Atlanta to at least allow us to peacefully demonstrate, allow our comrades to go live in the trees, protect our forests, the best that the city of Atlanta said we can give you is murder, repression, mass arrests, domestic terrorism charges.
Fuck 12.
Fuck 12. So when the city of Atlanta asks us to adhere to some concept of law and order, we need to tell them that the best that we can give them is rebellion. Now I may be a little bit selfish in my reason for being here. I want to be free. I want my children to be free. I want my mother to be free. I want my father, my brothers and sisters to be free. And I don't want to have to live a life in 10 years when my babies, my nieces, and my nephews come to me and ask, Kamasi, Where were you? What were you doing when they destroyed our clean water, destroyed our clean air? What happened? Why were you not around? What were you doing when my babies come in 10 years and they say Kamasi? What were you doing when this country turned into a fascist dystopia? What were you doing? Where were you when you were around? I can't sit here sit back and say I just sat home and watched this whole world burn to hell. That's right. I don't believe in the power. I don't believe in the power of the imperialists. I believe in the power of the people.
I mean, does that? I mean, those words sound like violence, Collin.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be free. God, where have I heard that before? So
Every revolutionary of color available, especially if they're black.
yes. So, what do you think happened? This is all in the past, technically. What do you think happened after that? Do you think they like brought cookies and talked it out?
Let me guess. Can I make a big guess?
Yeah.
They brought the popo.
So, courthouse news, Atlanta AP, which we know, it's the AP. Okay. More than 20 people from around the country faced domestic terrorism charges Monday after dozens in black masks attacked the site of a police training center. Do you see any black masks in that video we just saw? Any?
Of course.
So, at the police training center under construction in a wooded area outside Atlanta, where one protester was killed in January, the site has become the flashpoint of ongoing conflict between authorities and left-leaning protesters who have been drawn together, joining forces to protest a variety of causes, among them people against the militarization of police, others who aim to protect the environment, and some who oppose corporations who they see as helping to fund the project through donations to a police foundation. Flaming bottles and rocks were thrown at officers during a protest Sunday at Cop City, where 26-year-old environmental activist Manuel Esteban Paz-Terán, or Tortuguita, was shot to death by officers during a raid at a protest camp in January. Police have said that Tortuguita attacked them, a version that other activists have questioned. Not just others, like all of the other activists. So surveillance video released by police show a piece of heavy equipment in flames. It was among several destroyed pieces of construction gear, police said. Protesters also threw rocks, bricks, Molotov cocktails, and fireworks at police officials said. In addition, demonstrators tried to blind officers by shining green lasers into their eyes. Someone's been listening to me. Someone's been listening to me. In addition,
you guys are hardcore
they used
on this channel.
I mean, hey man, we got to teach the people what they need to know. All right.
Yeah.
I'm working on my guillotine instructional video on how to build. We'll get there, right? How-to videos do great on YouTube. It's gonna be all right.
I'm not associated with that.
Yeah. Hey man, I didn't say what kind. Inflatable. All right. So along with classrooms, okay, back up. They used tires and debris to block a road. The Georgia Department of Public Safety said Monday. They're stealing that from the French and the Norwegians and Germans. They like to do that kind of stuff. Hay bales. You can find those in Georgia. But officers used non-lethal enforcement methods to disperse the crowd and make arrests, Shearbaum said. Shearbaum, causing some minor discomfort. Okay. Opponents have said that the site would be to practice, quote unquote, urban warfare, and the 85-acre, 35-hectare training center would require cutting so many trees that it would be environmentally damaging. Many activists also oppose spending millions on a police facility that would be surrounded by poor neighborhoods in a city with one of the nation's highest degrees of inequality. And here's Unicorn Riot again. Police raid Atlanta forest after. Go ahead.
Reef.
Yep. Thank you. Police raid Atlanta Forest after Cop City opponents overrun security post. So DeKalb County, Georgia, at least 30 people were arrested on Sunday evening in South River Forest during a Week of Action music festival taking place near the location of Cop City. There's an update here. As of 3/6/23, according to the Atlanta Police Department press release, there are at least 35 people detained. Unicorn Riot also learned that of those arrested, approximately 22 were charged with state-level domestic terrorism charges, moving the total number of people connected to the Stop City movement who are facing domestic terrorism charges to around 42. 42.
This is why I tell people, I know Nick has said the same thing. Nazis don't scare me.
No.
Cops do.
Yes.
Especially if you're trying to do the right thing.
I mean, one and the
Because
same.
they'll be the first ones to whoop your ass.
Yes.
So
they
Nazis
can escalate far more than we can. It's why nonviolence has always been the way.
Right. Because Nazis may just yell at you or whatever. Like, cops can practically kill you and get away with it. And at least with a Nazi, chances are, if they try and kill me, that they may not necessarily get away with it, depending on the circumstance, but a cop can.
Yeah.
So,
also, if you've been paying attention to some Joe Rogan conversations, talked about recently how there was actual FBI members working in Black Lives Matter to make it more violent. Things like that are kind of par for the course with this. So, we know how this works. You only need one brick to make a window drop. So, they might as well throw it, I guess. But earlier in the evening, a march of several hundred opponents of the project, generally known as forest defenders, took over a police surveillance outpost along a power line clearing near Entrenchment Creek. The crowd set off fireworks and threw other projectiles, quote unquote, over the barbed wire fence of the outpost, causing the police to retreat. Barricades of tires and other debris were set up at the outpost entrance, and 2 UTVs, a front-end loader, office trailer, and mobile surveillance tower were destroyed and set on fire. Several porta potties were tipped, and barbed wire fences bent, twisted, and rendered insecure. Have a bit of video for that if we want to roll that. Thoughts so far, Jose?
I guess, like, how do you effectively get a message across, and how do you organize people to do something where you can't misconstrue it as violence and you don't have the risk of getting hurt or killed by the police?
Yeah.
Can you? I don't know. Like, because I'm genuinely, the city doesn't want this, at least from what I see. These people are very vocal that they don't want Cop City. They're out there, they're protesting. And yet, also, I had to move, by the way, because I needed to charge my phone, and the closest outlet was over here. So I'll be back where I was in like 5 minutes when it
You're good.
charges up a little more. So sorry it's a little darker, but
that's all right.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I know if I was president, I would just say, hey, listen, clearly your people don't want this. Don't do it. Don't make me get in there, and use my federal power to have to stop this. Right? I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting question. And I'm curious to know what your take is, actually.
Well, I think it's very hard to do, a lot of the movements. This is FBI, CIA made it very difficult for nonviolence to take place. It's Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, they all talked about it, how that's difficult to deal with. Malcolm X felt like if they're going to blame you as such, but he also felt that you needed the sheepdog too in that regard. Otherwise, like, you need the wolf that Malcolm X was for them to listen to the person of reason. Like, it's a difficult coin to like balance for sure.
Because I could see a lot of people like tuning out when you played that video where the guy said we burned the Wendy's down. And I think I even saw the photos of when that happened, which were kind of aesthetic, by the way. I mean, I did see like some guys posing in front of the Wendy's as it was burning down.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, it's like
Well,
album
look,
cover wallpaper material there.
If those same people are willing to still honor the Hatfields and McCoys burning property, like, you know, like a lot of people don't realize we still celebrate putting Imperial tea in the Boston Harbor. Like, what is the language of the unheard, Collin?
All right.
You got to start listening to people if you don't want them. So
I guess I would come from it from the standpoint of like, you know, that's why you got to get me in there as a congressman, so it doesn't have to get to this level. You know, let me
even
put me
it's
in
very
there.
difficult. You know,
I will do. I mean, or just somebody. You'd have to like, I don't know. I mean, me personally, I get freaked out whenever I hear like there's a riot here and there because I know people are frustrated and people are clearly don't feel like they're being heard. So, but how do you get heard? Like that's what I'm asking. Like, is the riot an effective tool at getting heard?
This looks like a LARPing event.
Well, it's not so much of being heard, but it's the idea of getting attention.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, but I think the idea of how, especially those who are affluent, might kind of construe it being like, oh, think of the property costs and all this other kind of bullshit, you know? And I would also kind of say, like, I wouldn't tell anybody to necessarily riot. Like, I wouldn't say don't do it. I would just say be smart about it. Like, if you're going to do it, especially in a low income neighborhood, don't do it in the neighborhood that you live in necessarily, you know, like, because they're not going to touch it. They're not going to, like, people are not going to care, like, if a target in a low income neighborhood is going to be like, shut up or whatever. They might care more if it's more in an affluent neighborhood, however. So I think even there is being strategic of how you do it, but not in the sense of doing it in such a chaotic way where it just kind of gets lost. The message just kind of gets lost in like the outcome of it. And then obviously the media will spin it to be like, oh, look at these ruffians, you know, destroying property.
They have a bouncy house. They have a bouncy house. Like, what do you?
I remember. I heard a story of when King was in a jail in Birmingham. James Bevel had organized students, okay, like school kids. I think they were between 10 and 18, to skip class or come out of school and then just demonstrate in front of the school, right? So they were singing songs, they were making chants and protesting, and they refused to go into school. And so what happened was the parents got calls saying, hey, your kids is you need to come pick them up right now. And what happened was, as the parents were arriving, the police were also arriving too. And the police thought that the parents and the students were all demonstrating and protesting. So what did they do? They hosed down students and they hosed down the parents. And what happened was, this was reported into international press, where Bobby Kennedy got a call from some Japanese minister or from somebody like that and said, listen, we're not going to deal with a country that hoses their own people who were just non-violently demonstrating. I mean, what the hell is that? And so this was one of the biggest blunders of the Kennedy administration, because he had ordered the police to go there and quell this protest. And so after that, I think I forget what exactly it was, but Bobby Kennedy had advocated for something to be passed, one of the concessions that King had asked for in '63. And so I'm just seeing that, comparing that to now, because that was a nonviolent protest done by kids, and they had the moral high ground because they didn't do anything worth getting hosed over. The police just did it. And as a result, it embarrassed the nation. And I think if those kids had burned the school down, they would have lost their message entirely. And people would have said, of course they should have been hosed down. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm just putting this out there.
No, we've definitely advocated for outside the box thinking when it comes to protests and action like that. You know, you'd be surprised what, you know, a couple of idiots with a camcorder can do, you know, but I also don't like, I mean, again, that it's the unheard. There's a reason why they're doing this. It's not just because they're blatantly somehow more violent, or it's that they're tired of the literal death that is occurring among them. Like, if that was one of your family members, your brethren, you'd walk down the road with a 2x4 and a shotgun yourself. So, like, it's a little bit of like, we do this as a country for sure. Our foreign policy is more than willing to be, violent. So, it's pot calling kettle black, in my opinion. It's a little bit of, but
yeah,
I feel you. I do, because it makes us, they do claim we are nonviolent. They do claim we are radical, so on and so forth. So, but I also know what's the story Jimmy always tells of, I think it was Nixon who was telling someone, when the buses were about to be breached, that like, I'm afraid they'll come for us.
Yeah.
And the person replies like, that's the way we should feel.
Right.
Well, there's an interesting Nixon story during the Vietnam War. One night there was a protest done by students at the Lincoln Memorial, and he said, "You know what? I'm just gonna go check this out." And he snuck out in the middle of the night. And he didn't tell his Secret Service, and they were freaking out. Like, where the fuck did he go? And he was just in the back of the crowd of this protest and rally, seeing like, what is it that's got all, like, what do these students have against the Vietnam War? And so when they finally found him, they took him back, but nobody knew Nixon was in the crowd. And so, I'm just another funny tidbit. I don't know where I'm going with this. Look, I just think that it should never get to the point where people have to riot, because if you're getting to the point where people have to burn things down to get hurt,
I think incredibly wrong.
Something's wrong. Right. Something is, and I think that is what I'm probably more interested in trying to solve, to make sure that people don't have to get to that level. And I think that's also why I intervene too, because like I tried to play the nice game. I think I told you this, guys, right? Like, I tried to talk to the aides. I've emailed, I've made the calls, I've done the Zoom calls. Like, I want this. This doesn't work. And showing up at their doorstep and then, having to yell at them like, "Hey, I tried calling you and you don't hear me, so I'm going to tell you this to your face right now." Like, I think that has been very effective, because that has gotten a message across. And so that's just been me and my friend Kynan and a few friends of mine. And I don't know. And it's something that resonates with a whole bunch of Americans. And so I don't know. It's a tough question. It's a tough thing. And I think overall, the fish rots from the head down,
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. I wish more people looked at that as far as like, what's happening. I did want to showcase, before we head out of here real quick. Collin brought this to my attention. Here's what's funny. So here's Jack Prasibek. You know that guy, Collin, right? Yeah. Watch Antifa, clad in camouflage and black bloc attires, they set fire to a police facility and construction equipment in Atlanta. James Ray responds, yes. Breaking the construction equipment, aiding the development of a massive police urban warfare training facility is actually a good thing. It at least stops that from happening for a bit. Although I'm sure Bobcat is going to get a nice check here from Atlanta here soon. But this is from Prism. And they want to bring to your attention that this is far from the first time that Atlanta has prioritized the wishes of its ruling class over the community. It's a defining feature of Atlanta governance, in fact. While the fight to stop Cop City is a more recent struggle against the Atlanta ruling class orientation towards its most vulnerable residents, it should be understood within a much larger trend of state, corporate, and nonprofit forces banding together to shape the city in their interest and at the expense of Black and working class residents. This pattern showed up perhaps most vividly in the transformation of the city that occurred in the lead up to the 1996 Olympics. So, to attract the Olympics and the supposed increase in revenue and reputation that the games would bring, Atlanta's political and economic leadership worked to physically and ideologically reshape Atlanta as a, quote, world-class city, a mission that predated but intensified during the city's preparation for the Olympics. While the APF and ACP led the push for Cop City today, The private nonprofit Atlanta Committee on the Olympic Games, ACOG, and groups like the Central Atlanta Progress, a nonprofit representing Atlanta's business interests, championed the vision and city transformed for the Olympics. So, upon being selected for the 1996 Olympics, the city's leaders prepared Atlanta for the games with displacement, destruction, and redevelopment. What a coinky-dink. In 1995, the city destroyed Techwood Homes, the U.S.'s oldest federally subsidized public housing project, to clear the way for the Olympic Village that would house athletes and media. Just south of Techwood Homes, the Techwood Park District, an economically and culturally vibrant location, home to over 10% of the city's shelter capacity that was painted as a, quote, slum by the city's corporate forces, was transformed by ACOG into the fenced-in Centennial Olympic Park. Several other neighborhoods were cut up or destroyed in the service of the Olympics, including Atlanta's Summer Hill neighborhood, which was replaced by the Centennial Olympic Stadium, and an array of townhomes that were unaffordable for prior residents. The city also made significant policy changes and other infrastructure investments that would facilitate displacement, often through criminalization. In 1991, the Atlanta City Council passed new city laws hyper-criminalizing homelessness. Laws that, according to historian Maurice Hobson, were so ambiguous that they could be enforced against undesirables at the discretion of authorities. In 1995, the city opened the Atlanta City Detention Center downtown with an approximate 1,000 bed capacity, which state forces used to clear mostly black homeless people from the streets and hold them over the weekend when tourists flooded the city. Hauntingly, the new jail was referred to by one city official as the first Olympic project completed on time. Organizers are still fighting to close this jail. The city displaced roughly 30,000 people from their homes between 1990 and 96, and illegally arrested over 9,000 homeless people between 95 and 96. At the time, some activists even uncovered the Atlanta Police Department's use of pre-printed tickets with categories filled out for African American male and homeless. While state and corporate actors were the key drivers of the Olympic transformation, nonprofits also aided directly in the displacement, lending resources, involvement, and cover to state violence. For example, through a partnership between the city and the nonprofit organization Travelers Aid, homeless individuals were given one-way tickets out of town and were reportedly required to sign pledges not to return.
Jesus.
Just as state and corporate entities partnered with nonprofits during the Olympic displacement, today, the Atlanta Police Foundation is partnering with the National Center for Civil and Human Rights to offer, quote, human rights training to the Atlanta Police Department, a partnership touted the lead up to the city council vote on Cop City. Thoughts, gentlemen?
About capitalism.
Yeah. Yes.
And funny enough, like I've spent time in Olympic Park, like in Atlanta, like a few years ago. Like it's a shithole now. Like that whole area. So it's basically like those who like live in Atlanta or are familiar with it confirm that for me. But like, I had to wonder, like, what the fuck did they do, like, back in '96? Because I don't see. Yeah, there are some new things that I think have happened within Atlanta. You know, like post Olympics. You know, more currently, sure, but like, I don't see like. And I remember this as a kid, like, you know, especially during the '96 Olympics. Like, I remember it being like this grand thing in terms of like, oh, Atlanta is kind of like, as I said, a world-class city, and like, you know, transportation and housing and like all these amenities, and like, and I go there now, it's just kind of like, where is it? Like, like, I don't see it necessarily. Like, so, but this does not surprise me at all, given I just think, if anything, is a more extreme circumstance, I think of what we talked about on this show before, but like actually like basically telling the homeless, like, get the fuck out and like don't come back. Like it's just an extreme way in the name of an event that for 2 weeks.
Right.
Really. 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Made the city loads of money, though, I'm sure. Jose, closing thoughts before we wrap?
I think the injustice speaks for itself, and it's just, you hear about stories like this that are happening across the country. And, this is why I think, I know you see it the other way where it's bottom up. I think it's top down. I think Roosevelt is the best example. FDR Roosevelt, not Teddy Roosevelt. FDR Roosevelt is the best example of when government is at its best. It can help everybody at the same time and give everybody a message of hope that you can reconstruct a nation and pull itself out of a depression, which I think we're in right now.
Oh,
and
I do. Hold on, Jose. I do want to push back on you a little bit, just in terms of FDR, because yeah, like he only did what he did to kind of save capitalism, and then like the initiatives that he did not benefit people of color,
bring you
especially
to
like Black,
a particular person he didn't like. In New Orleans, there's a bridge people may know. Collin, do you know who I'm talking about? You should know this. Mainly because you know another guy named after him. Huey P. Long. The Louisianan senator would always butt heads with FDR. Many of FDR's Grand New Deal 2, Electric Boogaloo, was straight from Huey P. Long's literal letter he sent to FDR. FDR was not a fan of him because he was too far left, right? But I mean, he said that essentially this was like, I've got to do this if you guys want to keep your money. Like, so leaders only want to do the bare minimum, even that guy, Huey P. Long had share your wealth clubs. Does the kids in the class know what happened to Huey P. Long? And why there's a bridge named after him? That's it. There's a bullet hole in the courthouse still.
I think that story gets. I don't think Huey Long was like. He was a great guy, and actually, I mean, you're right. A lot of it of New Deal 2 was taken from Huey Long. I think the rivalry between FDR and Huey Long is a little more blown up, but I don't know the history enough to really comment more on.
Well, it's also. I mean. He gerrymandered the district against oil barons. Like there's a lot to that guy. He's not great either.
No, he was a
white
guy
from the
I have
30s.
I think
20s.
he should be studied more. And it's a shame that he did get shot. I will say this about FDR as a whole. Before FDR, people were living in literal shanty towns, right? So they had tin roofs and aluminum houses, right?
Hoovervilles.
What saved the nation was, the alphabet soup that FDR brought in with the New Deal, social security for people, the TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, the CCC, right? All of these, and Glass-Steagall, which was the biggest one, right? I'm not saying he was a perfect guy. I mean, the imprisonment and the encampment, the concentration camps of the Japanese was a complete mistake, and it should never have been done. I don't think there is any president that has ever been perfect. But I think FDR's principles, at least, when you read his inauguration speech, where he says, it is better that a government that errs in that spirit of charity is better than a government that just lives in its cold, unfeeling, indifference, right? And I agree with that, right? That you can have a government that's going to make mistakes, but if it's in that spirit of charity, in that spirit of we have to do what's right, then I think you can forgive those kinds of mistakes over a government that just doesn't care about you. And so, you can see it. I mean, people were optimistic when it came to FDR because at least something was being done, and he addressed people's fears and concerns. And, I mean, you're right about the thing that he could have done for more for indigenous and Black people rights.
Again, like
and you're right. It was a political game, because he had to try and win the South, right? And he kind of was able to. And I'm not excusing him for that. Don't think for a second I am. But it was his wife who was doing a lot of the advocacy for the indigenous people and the people of color in these communities, because to them, when she showed up, it was kind of like if he was showing up. And there's lots of letters that prove that were given to FDR. Look, all I would say is give FDR a chance, because, you know, he did save the nation when we needed it the most. And it was even before the war, you know, 1939. I would just point you to one video. You can go on archive.org. I also have it on my channel. It's called A New Deal for New York. And he also had these for lots of states, right? It's an 8-minute video where he's going through all the great projects that he did for New York, rebuilding the library, building up the highway infrastructure, and what he was doing for the children. He started a school lunch program. Look, I'm just saying, like, I understand nobody's ever going to be perfect.
I think just, and I think
we can dream bigger is my thing.
We can dream bigger, and I think to just kind of close this out, I think that's why people like you are extremely important in what we need right now, because me, generally, rule speaking, I don't trust any politician. Sure. Even the ones I like, you know.
So much so, I'd rather you not be. I'd be like, hey, just build a library, like feed some people. Like there's priorities, baby. Like they're gonna do their thing, you know.
Right. You guys are like the most libertarian leftists I know.
Welcome to the club, bro. You know.
But but
I'm in the South. I get called a communist here. Like, you know, not much I could do about it. You know, lefties call me a right winger. It's just how it works. You know. So.
But all the same. That being said, Jose, thank you for coming on and, you know, facing us. And I will say this, like, obviously there are a lot of rooms that I think even just tonight we showed that we kind of disagree on some things, but I think for what it's worth, you're very articulate, you're very brave, and keep speaking truth to power in terms of what you're doing. And, you know, like, and I think you've definitely kind of resurrected the idea of the pushback, as I say, you know, in terms of like meeting with your politicians and really like, especially if they're like their congressperson, like having the means and being brave enough to kind of speak truth, even when it's difficult, and even, you know, just the risk that it might take to you personally. And so I know people in the chat has said they really have appreciated you in doing so. So
speaking of,
and we appreciate that as well.
Yeah. And I'll just say, you know, listen, nobody has to agree with me on anything, and nobody has to agree with anyone on everything. In fact, I think it's better that nobody agree with everyone, because honestly, I think we're all a little wrong on everything we might think. Nobody is perfect in their thinking. But if you stand with me against injustice, I will stand with you against injustice, wherever it may be. And I think at the end of the day, that matters more right now, because a lot of people are suffering and they need people to stand up for them. Yeah. So
while the people give you rounds of applause in the chat, please tell them how they can find you and support your efforts.
You can find me on Twitter right here at Hose B Trigger. Hose B because Hose A was taken, and Trigger because I made this when I was in high school. So, you know.
We all were in high school. Well, at least more currently, like in high school, you come up with those names and then you figure out, oh, like I probably should have something better. So, we all been there. But again, Jose, thank you for coming on.